Hello everyone and welcome back to Paul's Hardware. This is GPU, RAM, and SSD Price Watch, the series that I really wish I didn't have to continue doing. But as we all know, prices for PC hardware are just too damn high, specifically for GPUs, RAM, and SSDs. So the purpose of this series is not to tell you guys, hey, here's some stuff you should buy. It's to sort of warn you against buying things that are too overpriced. And then for anyone who needs to buy something right now, whether it's to replace a component that's failed, or if you really need to get a PC up and running for something important like work, we're going to show you the lowest prices out of what is available. So let's get started.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by Thermaltake's Wood Series cases, adding a touch of warmth and style to a variety of existing chassis designs, such as the TR200WS, seen here in the white snow finish, showcasing light-colored wood-textured accents while maintaining the TR200's core features, such as easily removable side and top panels, magnetic dust filters, and support for an optional 6-inch LCD screen. Black cases like the TR300WS are paired with darker maple-inspired accents for a warm and stylish aesthetic, and of course the case still includes a tempered glass side panel, excellent airflow, and support for 360mm radiators for AIO or custom cooling. Thermaltake's WS chassis lineup includes other cases from the View series and more, so for further details click the Thermaltake Wood Series sponsor link in the video description. A couple quick notes on methodology before we begin. We're focusing on parts that are readily available at retail stores in the US as listed by PCPartPicker, and for any individual component such as the RTX 5060 Ti 16GB, we're looking at the lowest price available and then the average of the lowest 10 prices available, and I'm going in and double checking to make sure that the listed prices are from a retailer you can actually buy from, such as Amazon, B&H, Best Buy, Newegg. And then for retailers that also have marketplace sellers, which are independent sellers who list their products on marketplaces, we're double checking to make sure that they at least have a somewhat favorable rating. This is like 85% out of 66. That's pretty borderline for me, but it's just barely within the realm of acceptance. And for 5060 Ti 16GB, which are becoming harder and harder to find, we gotta take what we can get. But speaking of which, here is the chart for May, and let me give you the A-B comparison. There's the April chart if you wanna go back and forth. Here's the updated chart for May. The new data is in the May column over here in gray, and do note for the last couple months, I'm still listing the averages. And then we have a bit of a history going all the way back to when we first started recording this back in March of 2025, over a year ago. And then over here you got the results columns. This is just the change from month to month, looking at April to May difference. And then we got the price difference versus MSRP. Pretty much every single card is over MSRP with the exception of the 7900 XT. And then we have that listed here as a percentage of the MSRP as well. My overall summary for the May numbers is that it's not great. Things are not fantastic. We have a little bit of a silver lining in that things have not gotten worse, at least when it comes to the lower end GPUs. We have pretty much stagnation down there. But unfortunately for anything that even hints at being useful for like higher end workstation or enterprise use, pretty much anything with higher VRAM allocation like a 5060 Ti 16GB, or especially the higher end Nvidia graphics cards, the 5070 Ti 5080 and 5090, all of those are marked up roughly 30% or more, especially the 5090, whereas the GPUs with lower amounts of VRAM are marked up about 15%-ish, and then there's the 5060 Ti 8GB, which is only 4.7% up over MSRP. Greatly helped by that $2 reduction going from $400 to $398 this month. If you're looking for non-Nvidia graphics cards, unfortunately there's not a lot of help coming from the Radeon side. They seem to be perfectly happy maintaining their slice of the market and not being very competitive. The 7900 XT looks good with all the green it has over here, but do note that the $900 MSRP was quite high when it first launched, so we got to take that into account. That said, if you do need something with a lot of VRAM, the 7900 XT has 20 gigs. It's available for $680. So that's about as close as we can come to a buy recommendation for the last gen RX 7000 series. For the 9000 series, again, there's nothing too exciting. Everything is marked up. We have slightly better prices for the 9060 XT 8GB and the 9070 non-XT 16GB. And then down on the Intel Arc side, we have continued disappointment because none of these prices are getting better. Remember when the B580 and B570 were $235 and $200? I mean, it was only 5 or 6 months ago, but it seems like forever. But Arc has just continued to disappoint in terms of retail availability and price, especially with the more recent news that they're probably not going to launch a B700 series or even like the Celestial series with desktop models either. Okay, next I'm going to run through the least expensive option in each GPU category. The RTX 5050 has an MSRP of $250, so paying close to $300 is not very exciting, especially when you consider that this has sold for as little as $200. Stepping up to the RTX 5060 8GB, it's going for $350. That is $50 marked up over its MSRP. This is sold for as little as $279, so again, not the greatest. The RTX 5060 Ti 8GB with 8 gigs of VRAM, which wasn't very exciting in 2025 and continues to not be exciting in 2026, but it does bear the distinction of being the least marked up of the Nvidia RTX 50 series at only about 5% over MSRP. It's going for $400 on Amazon, or you can save $2 by going over to B&H and getting this MSI, at least triple fan cooled Ventus 3X OC model for $398. Now, a lot of this seems somewhat repetitive to me, and that's because I've needed to shoot this video twice. The first attempt had a bit of a technical difficulty, but it has given me a little bit more perspective as I've come back to some of the quote-unquote best deals per category. I've seen them creeping up, even just from like yesterday to today. So this Gigabyte Eagle RTX 5060 Ti 16GB was $545 yesterday and was the least expensive 5060 Ti 16GB, but that has jumped up to $635, and that's because it's now being sold by, let me guess what this seller's feedback rating is. 80%. I guess it could be better, could be worse. It's one of those that tells you right up front, serial number is recorded, which means they're going to be very particular if you attempt to return something to them, I imagine. Anyway, the updated least expensive 5060 Ti 16GB is up by $4 to $549. And this is the one that I showed in the intro, being sold by CoverZip. At least they're 85% instead of 80. When it comes to these marketplace sellers, I don't like to support them if they're selling cards for grossly over their MSRP, so I might spend a few extra dollars to buy something directly from retail. But I don't know, it's difficult to follow principles when you're buying overpriced GPUs in the first place. Moving on to the 5070 12GB. This one was an easy recommendation back in the summer and into the fall of 2025. That's when it was selling for like less than its MSRP of $550. At $630 now, it is plus $80 over its MSRP. But remember that back in November, these were going for as little as $480. So that's actually closer to $150 marked up over what they were comfortable selling it at last year. I suppose at least you have a couple options over at Best Buy because there's an MSI and a PNY model, both at $630. The 5070 Ti also ranks pretty high on the disappointment meter. This has sold for as little as $730 or $20 off its $750 MSRP. So the lowest priced $980 version now, creeping up very close to $1,000. And yes, in fact, the average is now up over $1,000 for the 5070 Ti. But yeah, not too much more to say about that. It's just sad to see, along with the RTX 5080 at $1,290 for the least expensive option here. The 5080 has always been a $1,000 graphics card because that was its MSRP. It has gotten down to $989. Of course, there's been like flash sales and that sort of thing for a lot of these graphics cards where the prices might have been lower than the bolded prices I have here on the chart, which is showing the least expensive that I've seen them in the course of gathering data for this series. But I would say if you really need a graphics card with 16 gigs of VRAM, the RX 9070 non-XT is your best bet right now. And it looks like Best Buy also has that same PNY 5080 for the same price of $1,290. Almost like they price match each other or something. Okay, last for the RTX 50 series is the big boy RTX 5090. $2,000 MSRP, but typically sells for between $3,500 and $4,000 in today's economy. For anyone who's actually looking to buy an RTX 5090, if you are trying to get the best deal you can save a few $100s at least if you're patient and you wait for stock to come in for some of them that are going for in the $3,300, $3,400 range. But if we go over to the Asus website, we can see that you can't actually buy it. So that is why it's crept up to $3,745, which is over on Amazon. But ooh, only a dozen left. Better rush to buy that right now. Side note also, since I'm comparing day-to-day prices going from yesterday to today since I reshot this video, this was $3,770 yesterday. Now it's $3,775. Here's where we can see the price creep. They like to just sort of like edge the numbers up a little bit at a time just to see how high they can get apparently before they stop selling. But okay, let's move on to Radeon cards. Here's the aforementioned 7900 XT going for $680 over at Amazon. It says there's only 4 left, but it's been at this price for a while now, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that selling out. Going to the 9000 series, we have the RX 9060 XT 8GB variant. That's $340, which is $40 up over the MSRP and $90 up over the lowest price that we saw this card at, $250 when it was much more easy to recommend. Of course, all the higher VRAM cards are commanding a premium, so the 9060 XT 16GB is up to almost $450, $449, although you do get a free GPU holder. This is an Amazon limited deal. It's not a lightning deal because it has been here since yesterday. 58% claimed, it says. These may or may not still be available by the time you guys watch this video. So I did list a few more. For about $35, $40 more, there's this ASRock Challenger, but it comes with a 750 watt 80 plus gold power supply, which isn't too bad of an add-on if you ask me. And then Amazon has the ASRock Challenger as well for $620 without any add-ons. Last card in the Radeon 9000 series is the 9070 XT 16 gig going for $710. This one has sold for as little as $600, so it's about $110 marked up over the cheapest price we've seen it, which also happens to be its MSRP. And if you guys have been watching this series for a while, you probably have sensed some of my frustration with the RX 9070 options, because these could be very viable cards if they were more competitively priced, but they've pretty consistently stayed well above MSRP. It did get down to $600 back in November, December, but it's been up over $700 for pretty much all of 2026 so far. All right, lastly, we have Intel Arc, the B580 going for $289. It is the lowest price graphics card with 12 gigs of VRAM, which is, I guess, something to be said for that, but it would be much more palatable at its low price of $235. And the same goes for the B570, cheapest one is $260 right now. That one is sold for $200 before. I feel like I saw this at $190 as well at one point, but my chart says $200, so I'll stick with my chart. It might have been a fire sale or something like that. But yeah, the Arc GPUs have gone from like our best new hope for competition to like, oh, Intel's just like all the others and they care a lot more about the data center cards these days and the Pro cards. But speaking of data centers and stuff, let's switch over to memory and SSDs. Starting with memory, although both memory and SSDs are on this chart. This is the April chart and this is the update for May. You can probably see there are some price increases specifically for the higher capacity RAM, the 64 gig kits. Your middle of the road DDR5 32 gig kits that used to be like, hey, you know, buy one of these kits for $100 or less and get your gaming PC up and running, have crept up a smidge from last month, going from $370 to $380 at the cheapest. If you don't care about speed and timings, the price has gone down just a little bit. And then I guess we have a slight glimmer of hope on the DDR4 side where prices have gone down a little bit. So for anyone who's building a last generation AM4 system, DDR4 pricing is still the best of what is available, I will say for now. So last month I had 3 kits at $370 for 32 gig kits that were at least DDR5 6000 speed and CAS latency 32 or lower. Those have all jumped up by $10 to $380. Relatively not that much more expensive, but it is still disappointing to see that price creep. We got a Patriot DDR5 6400 CL32 kit right here for $380, and then there's a fairly nice looking in terms of aesthetics black and white Viper Elite 5 kit, which is DDR5 6000 and CL30. If all you care about is your memory capacity, if you're not quite as focused on gaming performance, you don't have to give up too much. This crucial kit is DDR5 6400, it's just not the greatest timings at C38. And you save $20 or so coming in at $360. And when I was talking about the GPUs, I mentioned that the lower end stuff seems to be at least not going up in price too much, whereas higher end and higher capacity RAM stuff seems to be going up a lot more. For RAM, for example, when you have chips with better density as you need in order to populate, say, a 64 gig DIMM, those prices continue to go up quite a bit. The cheapest 64 gig good speed and timings kit is now at $795. When it comes to post-crisis pricing, there was a brief time in March when you could get a 64 gig kit that was pretty solid for $600. And it's really weird that that kind of seems like a deal now, but there's been a $200 increase on 64 gig kits that fit those criteria. And don't even try to look at like the kits that are like 6200, 6400 or better. And when it comes to 64 gig kits, those are selling for like 900 to 1000 or more. Now, I guess somewhat fortunately for people who need more memory, if you're doing workstation stuff at home or local AI work, speed and timings is often less important than capacity. So if all you need is 64 gigs of capacity or a 2x32 gig kit, you can shave a little more than $100 off and come down to about $670 for this crucial kit. Next we have DDR4, possibly the most optimistic part of this video, which is just that DDR4 prices aren't quite as bad as they were last month. And hey, even Silicon Power, who has had some of the best deals but has had these really convoluted like discounts applied, they appear to have gotten rid of those and they're just saying here's the price, although they are still listing like a BS like here's what it should cost and here's you saving money paying only $197 for a DDR4 32 gig kit. That's the cheapest one. It's also available over on Amazon for just a few bucks more. This is pretty much the same exact kit. On the DDR4 side though, if you're not concerned about speed and timings, you don't save too much money. $190 for this crucial kit, which is DDR4 2666. And it's also one of those really bare bones like green PCB kits. So I would say just go ahead and spend $5, $10 more and go for something that at least looks a little bit nicer and has better speed. All right, rounding things out with the SSD comparison, we're mostly looking at price per gigabyte and then the lowest price for 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, and 3 terabyte drives. These are the numbers for April. These are the numbers when we jump over to May. We do have a little bit of a drop in the 1 terabyte drives, but we have a comparative increase on the 4 terabyte drives. So again, going along with the theme of like the lower end stuff isn't like horrible or as horrible as the high end stuff. The higher capacity stuff has more demand workstation and data center side. So that's where the prices are staying high or getting worse. But okay, at least for a 1 terabyte drive, you can get this King spec model for $120. I'm not really differentiating between like PCIe 3.0, 4.0, or 5.0. We're mostly focused on capacity here. This is a slightly shorter M.2 2242 drive, but it should still fit in any motherboard that fits a 2280 drive. And it is at least using up the bandwidth of PCIe Gen 3 with 3000 megabytes per second writes and 3500 megabytes per second reads. If you want to jump up to 2 terabytes, the cheapest option is pretty much the same price per gigabyte, but it's about $240 if you count the $10 promotional gift card that comes along with this King spec drive. This is also a Gen 3 drive, very similar read and write performance to the 1 terabyte that we just looked at. And then over on Amazon, there's 11 2 terabyte drive for $240. This one doesn't have quite the same read and write, so I would opt for the King spec between the two of these. But then finally, at the 4 terabyte level, we have the Crucial P310. Interestingly, when I looked at this yesterday, it was $426.26. Today, they're like, let's make it 50 cents more expensive, $426.76. But at least this is a Gen 4 drive with Gen 4 read and write speeds, 6,000 megabytes per second writes, 7,100 megabytes per second reads. If you'd like to do a quick check on current storage prices on PCPartPicker, there's a link in the description. You can go over and look at SSDs that are NVMe. You could look at SATA drives too, but if you just sort by price per gigabyte, you can see the least expensive options, which are typically 4 terabyte drives, but those are still $427-ish. And then down here we have 1 and 2 terabyte options at about 12 cents per gigabyte. But that is my rundown of the current prices for the most expensive PC hardware on the market. Your GPUs, your RAMs, your SSDs for May 2026. I'll post links to the components I went over down in the video description. There's also a link down there to my store at paulshardware.net where you can get yourself some shirts, mugs, pint glasses that are not grossly overpriced compared to mid-2025. So just trying to end on a high note, but thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're not already. We'll see you all in the next video.